Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another session at Swiflearn with me, Xenia. And so, before starting a session like I usually do, I'm going to introduce you again to Swiflearn, what exactly Swiflearn is. So, Swiflearn is India's most sincere learning destination for grade 3 to grade 10. And we provide you with 100% of live and interactive classes. We give you personalized attention, batched with a maximum of 6 students. A dedicated mentor, academic mentor is giving to you to track your work progress and cover syllabus as per the school exam schedule and also handle custom requests. Now, if I would talk about the different amazing features of SwiftLearn, they include detailed progress reports, SwiftLearn academic test series, and taking ultimate practice test and subjective tests for your school exams. Now, if you haven't tried it yet, please book a trial today itself. Next, if you have not yet subscribed the channel, the Swiflearn YouTube channel, please do subscribe it, press the bell icon, and never miss any update for another amazing session on YouTube. Yeah. So today we are going to continue our chapter Heredity and Evolution. It's the fourth part of the session, and there are already 3 classes that are there running on YouTube. So you can absolutely go and check what was covered in the previous classes. I would love to give you just a brief that what we did in our previous class just before that, the third session of Heredity and Evolution. So we covered about variation. We also covered about the theories on evolution and acquired and inherited traits. So if you want to have a detailed knowledge or want to know about or read about variation, theories of evolution and acquired traits, please acquired and inherited traits, please go and have a look at into the YouTube videos that are already present. And one more thing, like we also covered with that, we covered about the theory of Lamarckism, right? In detail, you can know about that. We also went through the theory of Darwin in our previous class. So if you must be knowing about these theories, these are very, very important for the chapter Heredity and Evolution. So please have a look at those, and if you have any doubt, please put them in the comment section. Next, so what are we going to learn today in our session? So in today's class, we are going to learn about species. We are going to learn about speciation and evolution and classification. At the end, we will learn about evidences of evolution, that how exactly we are getting to know that these things are happening in our world, or how the species have changed around the world, or what are the evidences, like where are these coming from. So before starting the new concept, let us discuss some questions. Yeah. And this will give you a kind of a brief also that what exactly was covered in the previous sessions. So here we go. The first question, how can you differentiate between inherited and acquired characteristics? What are exactly inherited and what are exactly acquired traits? So acquired traits are the ones that a person developed during his lifetime. These are not passed from one generation to another. On the other hand, inherited traits are present in the person since the time of his birth and are passed from one generation to the another. So please do add your answer with an example. So suppose if we talk about inherited traits, so the examples can be our skin color, eye color, or maybe hair color. These can be some of the inherited traits that you get from your parents or grandparents. Like these are inherited out of generations. And what will be the acquired traits, like building up a muscular body, right? Or maybe knowing some skills. Maybe you're good at speaking, or maybe you're good at archery, or maybe you're good at shooting, right? So these are the skills that you develop in your lifetime. They are not inherited, or they are not coming to you from your previous generations. Now, next question. Describe the postulates of Darwin's theory. What exactly Darwin's theory taught us? So there were 4 postulates of Darwin's theory. In Darwin, in one of the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Okay, so They're as follows. The first one, individuals within species are variable. Second one, some of these variations are passed on to offsprings. Third postulate is in every generation, more offsprings are produced that can survive. And fourth, the survival and reproduction of individuals are not random. The individuals who survive and go on to reproduce the most are the ones that are most that that has the most like inherited the most favorable condition or favorable variation in which you can survive, and they are naturally selected. It follows logically from these that the characteristics of population will change with each subsequent generation until the population becomes distinctly different from the original. This process is known as evolution. Now, coming to another question that talks about like the theory which was more acceptable. There was Lamarck theory or the Darwin theory, but we cannot say that which was more acceptable, but we can have a little bit of a difference in them. What was the difference? So Darwin noticed that within any population of organisms, there were always individuals with different traits. Unlike Lamarck, who said that traits would develop and change during an animal's lifetime. Darwin believed that individuals were simply born with different traits, and these different differences were mostly random. Okay, so these were the basic difference. The ones that I spoke right now were the basic difference between the Lamarck or the Darwin theory. Now, let us move to today's session. What are species now? What exactly species are? You may have heard the word species before and wondered what it meant, right? So, species is usually used when comparing two animals, or perhaps when someone has discovered a new species, right? Species is just a way of classifying living things. Classifying means organizing or comparing the things in different formats. Now, if you can just see what is there inside the cupboard, you can see that the collection of things are the things are sorted in a way where like with the help of the length or maybe color coordinated or what type of it, right? You can just look at this cupboard in front of you and see the segregation, or I would say the distribution of things has been done in such a beautiful way. You can find easily whatever you are looking for, right? In same way, we divide species so that if we want to know about something special or something specific, we can easily relate to that, right? Now look at these cats. All of these cats belong to the same family, right? And what is the family? The cat family, right? Because all of them here, they are cat. Moving further, now a species is the most detailed form of classification of living things. In the living things, a species is a group of similar individuals that are able to reproduce. There are estimated to be about 9 million species on Earth. Now, what is speciation? The process by which new species develop from the existing species is known as speciation. It is an event that splits the population of the same species into two independent species which cannot reproduce among them. Uses, or we can say like causes of speciation. Genetic drift, it occurs due to the change in the frequencies of particular gene by chance alone, right? Example, if a hurricane strikes the mainland and the bananas with beetle eggs on them are washed away to an island, this is called a genetic drift. Genetic drift is the evolution of new species because of geographical segregation. And we have seen like almost everywhere that there are like kind of different species, even different kind of fruits, if the different kinds of food are available on different continents, isn't it? And why is there such a vast difference? Because of the geographical condition, because of the geographical segregation that we can see around ourselves. What is natural selection? There are variation caused in individuals due to natural selection, which leads to the formation of new species. Example, if the ecological conditions are slightly different on the island as compared to the mainland, it leads to a change in morphology and food preferences in the organisms over the course of generation. Like, right, just now we have read about an example where if there was a hurricane and from the mainland there was a bunch of bananas with beetles on them, they were carried away to an island where maybe the food conditions or maybe the temperature or maybe something, there was a difference. So now what happens after a few generations, that the food preferences of that organism, of those beetles, will change. Maybe there is a color variation due to the temperature, maybe there's a color variation because of the presence of things onto that island, right? So these are all natural selections. Now, splitting of population. If a population splits into different subpopulation due to geographical isolation that leads to the formation of a new species. Geographical isolation means like speciation starts because of population are prevented from interbreeding by geographical isolation. It is quite evident. Maybe there's a river flowing, maybe there's an ocean, or maybe there are hills appeared in between. Anything could happen. Like any kind of geographical isolation can be there. In this, a group of individuals of a species may become geographically isolated from one other members of or species. So both these groups grow in different environment and hence evolve to form a new species, right? Because they both are now geographically different. The temperature can be different, the food habits, the food availability can be different. So hence, after years or after generations, they both are now different or new kind of species on the same hand. Moving further, the geographical isolation is a common way for process of speciation to begin. Okay, so maybe like continental drift, if you have heard about, because of that, there are different kinds of species. There were mountain rise, there were river change courses, or organisms migrate, move from one place to another. Now, look at this example. What exactly is happening over here? So, if you look at onto the top of the screen where it says ancestral population. So, ancestral population was a rabbit that was green color. Right now, what happened? There was a dam kind of a thing, and because of the river, there were like kind of two separate the things got separated. Okay, and while there were like mutation and natural selection operation, there were kind of two color rabbit appeared. Okay, it was like a mutation that happens, and maybe by any chance there was one that was in different in color, and after many generation passed on, there were few more in different colors, right? But at the time, like reproduction isolation process, when these two things separated each other, there were more of the yellow color onto the right hand side, onto the left hand side there were of the gray color, and hence at the end of many generations there were two new species of the same ancestral population has appeared. One on the one hand they were gray, and onto the other hand they were yellow. Few other factors that affect speciation are hybridization. Hybridization is a process by which new types of species come into existence as a result of mating of two distinct species. Right? This process may lead to the existence of new species which is different from the parent. Hence, hybridization may result in another speciation. That means a new species has grown up now. A new species has appeared over here, right? So hybridization is what? Mating of two different kinds of individuals, or like mutation between two different maybe are not looking alike or of different type, right? So the generation that come up was absolutely different from both of them, because it had few traits from one individual and other traits from the other individual, right? And hence a new species appeared. Next, humans have a tendency to categorize things, isn't it? We are not always 100% correct in how to categorize, but in the world of science, it is an ever improving process, right? So maybe past 100 years back or maybe 200 years back, what scientists used to think, maybe now the scientists are thinking a little differently, and maybe they want to categorize things into different way. Yeah, so it's an ever kind of a changing process. Categorization can be changed, and it's improving over the time. Now, evolution and classification. The modern system of classification is based on evolutionary relationships. The degree of similarity and dissimilarity shows that all animals have evolved from a common ancestor, isn't it? So if it says that all of us has grown or have evolved from a common ancestor, you can just see in front of us how people on different continents look so different from each other. How it has happened? It has happened due to the inheritance of the traits that were required. Maybe the food habits change, maybe the appearance have changed, maybe the colors have changed. It is all because of the traits that were passed on from one generation to the another, and there were traits that developed at that particular time, living in a particular environmental conditions, isn't it? Now, the different evidences of evolution was given by homologous organs, analogous organs, paleontological evidence, and vestigial organs. Okay, so these are the different evidences of evolution that were given. Now, can you think of like any similarity between human, dog, birds, and whales? Think a little bit. If you like think that what can be the similarities on in between humans, in between dogs, birds, and whales? Is there any kind of similarity between all of us? Is there any? If I say they are all living beings, isn't it? They all are living beings, isn't it? Or maybe I would say they reproduce, right? Maybe the forms can be different. Maybe birds lay eggs, whales, dogs, humans, they have all different kinds of procedure to reproduce organisms, but they do, isn't it? And what else comes to my mind? Other things like all there are so many things. If we say that all of these things have been reproduced or has been come up from one individual, then there would have been similarities in these different kind of categories, different kinds of species, isn't it? Let us read it in more detail, that what exactly how these things or these different species can relate to each other. So that is known as homologous organs. The organs that have same design but dissimilar in shape, size, and function. They suggest the presence of a common ancestor. Example, for limbs of frog, reptile, birds, and mammals. Similarly, if you look at the question here, there are human, dog, birds, and whale. You know, we have similar kind of bone structure, or maybe the bone structure is kind of the same, but how we use them is a little different, you know, and that's how they have a common trait in all of them. We will read it in detail about, we will just read a little bit more detail of this particular topic. So they suggest the presence of common ancestors. For example, for four limbs of frog, reptile, birds, and mammals. Look at this. So if you can see here a human hand, there is one bone structure. Then here is our other bone structure that is in the wrist kind of a thing. Then we have our hand, the palm. We have kind of similar. Same goes with the cat. It has kind of a bone structure. Then we have a divided bone structure, and here we can see similar in the fins of the whale. It is kind of the same structure. Same goes with the wings of the whale. If you can just see, so these are all kind of similar kinds of bone structure, but how these different species are using them, it is different. Like humans use it as a form of a hand, cats use it kind of running, right, like the legs, or maybe picking up something. Whales use it as fins, and birds use it as wings to fly. Next, how homologous organs are formed. The organs such as bats' wings of birds, forelimb of a horse, and human arm have a common underlying anatomy. Anatomy means structure of the bones that was present in their last common ancestors. Therefore, their forelimbs are homologous organs. The shape and the size of the bones are not similar, right? We just saw that in the example. There is a similarity in their structure, that is, and they have the same set of bones. Man uses his hands to grasp and perform tasks. Bat and birds use their wings to flight. Horses use their forelimbs for running, and whales use their flippers for swimming. Animals like lizard, rabbit, frog, and birds have to have forelimbs of different shapes according to their lifestyle. But they all have the same set of bones, namely humerus, ulna, or radius. Such homologous reveal the common ancestry of all these animals. Such differences are due to divergent evolution or adaptation for varied conditions. Now, what are analogous organs? Right now, we were reading about the homologous organs. Now, moving to analogous organs. What are these? The organs similar in shape and functions, but their origin, the basic plan and development are dissimilar. They suggest different ancestors. Example, wings of a butterfly, bird, and bat. These are all three different, they all have wings to fly, isn't it? But still, the structure of their bones, or how they're aligned, or how the structure has been formed in past years is different. It's different, right? So look into this, please look onto the diagram that's given onto the screen. So if you can see a bat and a bird, how they both have the wings, but if you can just see how the structure is different from each other, this is known as the analogous. Now, how analogous organs are formed. This happens because sometimes animals belonging to different groups happen to live in the same habitat. This forces them to lead a similar type of life and to the development of a superficially similar structure. Moving to paleontological evidences, the evidence from fossil was also given for evolution. The dead remains of the organisms are known as fossils. We all know that. For example, um, archaeopteryx process features of both reptiles and birds. This concludes birds evolved from reptiles, right? So here, if you can just see anemonite, an invertebrate fossil. Okay, here if you can see a fossil of a dinosaur. Then there are two methods for finding the age of the fossils. How do we find that how old or how new this fossil is? So firstly, we do by radiocarbon dating. Age of the fossils can be found by detecting the ratios of different isotopes of the same element in the fossil material. Depth of the fossil, age of the fossil can be found by estimation of the depth of the layer of rocks in which it is found. Example, the fossils we found closer to the surface are more recent than the fossils we find in deeper layers. How fossils give information about evolution. Some invertebrates of the seabed die and are buried in the sand around 100 million years ago. More sand accumulates and sandstorm forms under the pressure. Millions of years later, dinosaurs living in the area died and their bodies too are buried in the mud. This mud is also compressed into rock. Above the rock containing the earlier invertebrate fossils, right? Again, millions of years later, the bodies of horse-like creatures dying in the area are fossilized in rocks above these earlier rocks. Much later, by erosion of water, flow wears away some of the rocks and exposes the horse-like fossils. As we dig deeper, we find the older and older fossils. So this is how the entire process of the same thing, like how it was divided into layers, and we find, okay, this was the recent, this was much earlier, and then it is much deeper, so it was much, much earlier than that. Now, what are vestigial organs? They are rudimentary in nature. They have lost their function through evolution. For example, appendix in human, muscle of ears, and wisdom tooth, etc. So these are some of the, I would say, organs or some of the muscles that were not so useful for the humans. So now they have some kind of lost the evidence, or maybe lost the presence in the human bodies. Okay, now let us do some multiple choice questions and see what we have learned by now. So here we see question number 1. It says, of the following anatomical structure, which is homologous to the bones in the wing of a bird? Okay, so we had to find something that is anatomical in structure, which is homologous to the bones in the wings of a bird. Okay, let us see. Read the options. Cartilage in the dorsal fin of a shark. Is it? Next, bones in the hind limb of a kangaroo. Does it look like kind of similar? Let us see a few more. Chitinous strut in the wing of a butterfly. Let us read the next one. Bony rays in the tail fin of a flying fish. And E, bones in the flipper of a whale. So going through all of these options, I feel that the answer for the same is E, that is the bones in the flipper of a whale, right? If you remember, they were homologous to the hands, human hands, or maybe horses' limbs, kind of, they have kind of similar structure. Next, what must be true of any organ that is described as vestigial? It must be analogous to some features in an ancestor. It must be homologous to some features in an ancestor. It must be both homologous and analogous to some features in ancestor. It needs to be neither homologous nor analogous to some features in an ancestor. So I feel the answer for this question, the question says, what must be the true of any organ that is described as vestigial? So it is B. It must be homologous to some features in an ancestor. Okay, so it has to be kind of similar, kind of the same thing that was there in our ancestors, kind of a same structure, kind to be similar. So it's B. Next question. Both ancestral birds and ancestral mammals shared a common ancestor that was terrestrial, right? Today, penguins, which are birds, and seals, which are mammals, have forelimbs adapted for swimming. What term best describes the relationship of the bones in the forelimb of penguins and seals? And what term best describes the flippers of penguins and seals? Let's read the question. First is homologous. Okay. Homologous. Is it it says we'll read the question again. Both ancestors, birds and ancestral mammals shared a common ancestor that was terrestrial. Okay, both of them were terrestrial in nature. Today, penguins which are birds, which are categorized into birds, and seals, which are categorized under mammals, have forelimbs adapted for swimming. What term best describes the relationship of bones in the forelimbs of penguin and seals? And what best describes the flippers of penguins and seals? So first option was homologous. Second was analogous and homologous. Third is homologous, analogous. And D is analogous and analogous. I feel that it is C, which talks about homologous. So here, the relationship of the bones in forelimbs of penguin and seal, right? The relationship of bones that was in the forelimbs was similar. So that was homologous. And on the other hand, because they have inbuilt the trait. Now the seals, what do the seals do? They use it for living in the water, or maybe the penguins used those in form of the wings, right? So they have differentiated it. So that is analogous. So here are the answers as well. We can relate. First was E, second B, and third answer for third question was C. What is speciation and what are the different ways in which it can occur? Let us discuss this question. It will help us recapitulate the things what we have learned. The formation of new species by evolution or any genetic modification of the previously existing species in a population is called speciation. Few factors that affect speciation are, of course, the geographical isolation. What was geographical isolation? Geographical isolation is one of the factors which may lead to speciation. In this, a group of individuals of species may become geographically isolated from other members or species. So both these groups grow in different environment and hence evolve to form a new species. Various factors which play an important role in form of a new species, right? Variation factors which play an important role in this type of speciation are natural selection and genetic drift. And of course, hybridization. Hybridization is a process by which new types of species come into existence as a result of mating of two distinct species. This process may lead to existence of new species which is different from the parents. Hence, hybridization may result in speciation, like a new species was born with hybridization. So, what have we learned in today's session? We have learned about speciation. There are different causes. There can be genetic drift, there can be natural selection, there can be splitting of population, there can be geographical isolation, and under natural selection, it can be hybridization. Now, we also learned about evolution and classification. We have also learned about how the scientists find the evidence of evolution, what was homologous organs and what were analogous organs, and paleontological evidences and vestigial organ. Next. So thank you everybody for joining in. Thank you for joining in such an amazing session. If you have not yet subscribed the channel, please do subscribe it, press the bell icon and never miss any update for a new upcoming video, a new upcoming video on YouTube. So see you really soon, everyone. Thank you for joining in.